Hey, welcome to the part 1 of the video series on making multiplication easier using commutative, associative and distributive properties. And you would be like, what is that? So let's start straight with an example. And suppose you have this multiplication and you have to find the product of these three numbers. Now you have these three numbers, minus 25, 37 and 4. Now, one way to find the multiplication is that you go on and you multiply 25 by 37, and whatever you get after that multiplication, then you multiply that product with 4. So in case if you have to do 25 and 37, you will do 25 times 37. You first multiply this, right? And whatever you will get here, then you will multiply this by 4 in order to get this result. Now that's little bit time taking, right? Because that's a lengthy process. Is there any easier process than we can do, and by using these three properties, either all of them or any one of them, using any one of them, then that can be really very helpful if we can do that. And of course, if you remember that the commutative property, the associative property, right? If you remember, if you don't remember, then if you don't know these properties, then we have separate video lectures on them. So the basic requirement to understand this video is that you should have a proper understanding of the commutative associative properties. Now if you remember that by commutative property we mean that if A times B is there, then it's equal to B times A, right? This is the commutative property. And not only by it can be like A times B times C also. Okay, so A times B times C, it will be equal to C times B times A, or C times A times B, whatever, right? So the commutative property says that if A times B is there, then it's equal to B times A, right? And then you have this one like A times B times C, then C times B times A, or C times A times B. This is also true for commutative property. What for associative property? The associative property says that suppose you have A times B times C, then this will be equal to A times B if you group it together and then multiply C, right? What does that mean by this grouping together? You first find the product of these two numbers, and then whatever you get from the multiplication of these two numbers, you will finally multiply with the C here. Or it can be equal to A times B times C. Okay, so even you can group it together also. So what does that mean? That you will multiply A with the product of B times C. Okay, so that's what commutative and associative property is actually. So using these properties, you can solve this multiplication very quickly. How? If you use the associative and commutative properties here, and if you do it like this, minus 25 times 4, and do this one, then multiply 37. So this is the associative property. Like I can group together, I can group together or arrange the numbers according to my need, right? So that my calculation becomes easier. And you will be thinking that how come our calculation becomes easier using here the associative property? So the answer is that if you look at properly, then 25 times 4 is 100, right? It will give you 25 times 4 will become 100. So since minus sign is here, so minus 100 times 37. Now you can easily get minus 3700 as the answer or the product. So if you would have followed the first way, that was first you have to multiply 25 by 37, and that would have required a lot of time. And in contrast, or opposite of that, is this process or this step where you using the associative property, you group together 25 and 4, and you first found you try to find out the product of 25 and 4, and if you multiply 25 by 4, you'll get 100, and when you multiply 100 with 37, you'll get 3700. That was really very quick, right? Quicker in comparison to this one. Let's move to the next question, and that is minus 18 times minus 10 times 9. Here again you can use the associative property to make your calculation easier. So one way could be that you first multiply this one, like either you can do minus 18 times, you group together minus 10 and 9, right? So this will give you minus 18 times this will give you minus 90, this will give you minus 90, and if you multiply these two numbers, then you'll get, so 9 8 72 and 7 9 1 6 2 0, and this minus sign is here. So those of you who can't do it, it's 18 times 9, so 72, then 7 is 162, so 162, and then you 0 here. Or another way could be that you first group together minus 18 and minus 10, and then sorry, here you will get the positive sign because you have 2 minus here, okay. So you first group together minus 18 and minus 10, and then you multiply this with 9, and this will give you 180 times 9, and this will give you 0 8 72 7 and this 1620. This answer and this answer, both these two are equal, and we just use the associative property. When the first step, that was the first step, we group together 10 and 9, and in the second step we group together 18 and 10. Okay, so that was the basic difference there, and both are giving the same answer. Which one is quicker? Both these two steps are almost will take similar same amount of time. Now here it's minus 20 times minus 2 times minus 5 times 7. Now how would you do this? So always look at the numbers and see, is there any way that we can multiply and get something, a number having 0 at the units place? So if you look closely and properly, then you can see that if you multiply 2 by 5, you'll get 10. Okay, so why not go with that? So do it here. This will be minus 20 using the associative property. This is minus 2 and this is minus 5, and then it's 7. This is the associative property because we have grouped together 2 and 5. Then this will be minus 20, this will give you 10 because you have 2 minus here, and this will give you 7. Now what? You can either group together minus 20 times 10 using the associative property and then 7, or the another way could be that minus 20 and you group together 10 and 7. This will give you minus 20 times 70 will give you minus 1400. Even this will give you minus 200 times 7, and this will give you minus 1400. Both the answers are same, right? So both the answers are same here, minus 1400, here minus 1400. This was the first one where we grouped together 20 and 10. This was the second one where we grouped together 10 and 7. Okay, so this is the last one. Here you have 1, 5, 4 and 6. So what can you do? What can you do to make it anyways, these are very small numbers, like there is no 2-digit or 3-digit numbers in this question. So what you can do is just simply proceed, like group together 1 and 5, so minus 1 and minus 5, and then you group together minus 4 and minus 6. This will give you 5, and this will give you 24, and your final result would be will be 5, 4, 20, 2, 5, 2, 10 and 120. So this will be your answer. And even you can group together, like you can do this way also. You can, this is the second step. So -1 times, group together -5 and -4, and then you have -6, and this will give you -1 times 20 times 6, -6. Now what? Now you can group together -1 times 20 and then -6. This will give you -20 times -6, and this will give you this will give you plus, and this will be 120. So this one was a little bit longer because here you are making two separate groupings. Like first you did for 5 and 4, then you did for 1 and 20, but in this case you made two groups in one single step. Like you group together 1 and 5 and you group together 4 and 6 in a single step. That's why it reduced your number of steps, and that's why you got the answer quickly in this case in comparison to this one. You can go with any of the options, but this one was a quicker. So it needs a lot of practice actually to, you know, just look at the multiplication and think that, and try to observe that what can we do to, you know, find a product or the addition very quickly. What arrangements can we make? So for that, the concept of associativity, the concept of commutativity, the concept of distributivity of multiplication, addition or subtraction, whatever, these things should be, you know, like should be hardwired in your brain. Like it should be coded in your brain. You can quickly, you know, just recollect those formulas, those methods, those properties, and you can apply in your question. So mathematics is all about, you know, practice, 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 and it will always make you better, not perfect. Practice will always make you better, not perfect.